Hi guys, I'm Charisse. I manage the Wilton decorating room. Today I'm going to make a delicious classic fall dessert, the pumpkin roll. It's one of the most fun and popular recipes on Wilton.com, and for good reason. It's a light cake topped off with an easy cream cheese icing packed with rich fall flavors. The key is getting the techniques right, and I'm going to walk you through this step by step so that you can do it too. It looks very impressive on a dessert table, and it's a lot easier than you might think. But before we get started, make sure to subscribe to our channel so that you don't miss great recipes and tutorials like this one. To make a roll cake, we'll need to bake our cake in a jelly roll pan, and then we roll it into a log shape. The jelly roll pan is key to this recipe. I'm using the 10.5 by 15.5 inch jelly roll pan from our Performance Pan line. It's made from heavy gauge steel, it heats evenly, and the weight prevents it from warping and popping in the oven. This is important because we want a cake that bakes out flat and even. If you use a smaller pan with this recipe, you'll end up with a thick, dense cake. And if you use a larger pan, it'll be way too thin, and both of those will be hard to roll. I'm going to line the pan with parchment paper. This will help my cake release from the pan easily after baking. The first thing I'm going to do is sift together my dry ingredients. I have 3/4 cup all-purpose flour, 2 teaspoons pumpkin pie spice, 1 teaspoon baking powder, and a pinch of salt. If you don't have pumpkin pie spice, you can make your own by combining cinnamon, ground ginger, nutmeg, and allspice. I'm also going to add nuts to my dry mix. I took 1/2 cup of pecans and finely ground them in a food processor. If you want to toast your nuts first, you will get even more flavor. Just make sure you let them cool before you use them. Now let's work on the wet ingredients. I'm going to separate 4 egg yolks, setting aside the whites to use later for our meringue. I have the whisk attachment on my mixer, and we're going to beat this on medium speed for about 2 minutes until it's frothy. Slowly add 1/2 cup of sugar and continue beating for about 5 minutes. You want to get this to something called ribbon stage. The batter will be a light yellow, doubled in volume, and when you stream the whisk over the batter, a ribbon will sit on top for about 2 seconds. Watching for this is more important than just beating for 5 minutes. Now, I'm going to add 2/3 cups of canned pumpkin. This is 100% pumpkin, not canned pumpkin pie filling. Just mix on low until it's combined. Now, I'm going to move this mixture to a large bowl, large enough for folding my meringue into later. Add your dry ingredients in and mix them until they are just combined. We don't want to overmix or it will start to develop a tough texture. Now this gets set aside as I work on my meringue. Adding meringue to our batter is what gives this cake a really light texture. Before you start, make sure your whisk and bowl are very clean. The meringue will not whip up correctly if there's any trace of fat. Using the 4 egg whites we set aside earlier, I'm going to whisk them, starting on low just to break up the whites a bit, then I'll go to medium speed. I'm going to add my lemon juice and let this beat for about 2 minutes. The lemon juice helps the whites stabilize. If you don't have lemon juice, you could also use white vinegar or cream of tartar. I'm going to stream in a 1/2 cup of sugar and continue beating for about 5 minutes until we get soft peaks. I want to show you what soft peaks look like because this can be tricky. When you pick up your whisk, the meringue will droop down a little. This is key to getting a great cake texture. Underbeaten egg whites will look very delicate and won't have enough structure to stand up to the batter. But if you overbeat the egg whites, it adds too much air to the batter and is much harder to fold in. Quickly and carefully fold this into the batter that we prepared earlier. We don't want the egg whites to deflate. You're going to need a wide spatula. I'm using the Easy Flex silicone spatula, which is also great for scraping the sides of the bowl. We're going to add the egg whites in 3 parts. The first addition will lighten your batter a little bit and make it easier to fold in the rest of the meringue. We're doing this by hand so we can do it gently and retain the lightness of the egg whites. Watch how I'm moving my spatula. We're not beating or stirring, which would deflate the batter. We're just gently folding. I'm going to do it slowly first so you can follow along and see how easy this is. I'm starting in the center of the bowl and scraping up the side of the bowl. I'm going to lift up the spatula, turn my bowl a little, and reinsert the spatula in the middle part of the bowl. That is the basic motion of folding. I'll keep turning my bowl to get a new section each time I put my spatula in. Now add the second section and keep doing the same motion until all of the whites are just incorporated. Then add your last section. My oven is preheated to 375 degrees. I'm going to scrape my batter into the pan. Don't wait on this step. It needs to get it into the oven quickly so your meringue doesn't start to deflate. I'm using an offset spatula to spread the batter evenly. Place the pan in the oven on the center rack for 18 to 22 minutes. Make sure to rotate your pans halfway through for even baking, especially since we have such a large surface. This is a pretty thin cake, so you need to pay close attention to your baking time, especially if the oven you're using runs hot. It should be a nice deep orange-brown color when it's done. You also want it to spring back when you gently press the middle. This cake comes out of the pan as soon as it's finished baking. I'm going to gently loosen the edges of the cake with a spatula. Now it's time to flip the cake. I prefer to flip the cake onto a kitchen towel or a tea towel. Just make sure it's lint and scent free. You can also use a piece of parchment if you prefer that instead of the towel. I'm sprinkling powdered sugar on the towel to help absorb the moisture from cooling. I'm going to try to center the cake on the towel so that I have extra space on all edges. Now quickly, flip it onto the towel. If your cake doesn't come out, you can give it a few taps to loosen the cake. This will cool for just 3 to 5 minutes. No more than that, because we want the cake to be soft and pliable so that it doesn't crack when we roll it. Once we are ready to roll, I'm going to carefully remove the parchment liner. I'm going to take the edge of my towel and fold it over just a little to the short edge of the cake. This will prevent the very center of the roll from sticking to itself. Rolling while it's still warm trains the cake to keep its rolled shape. Roll it somewhat tightly, but not too much, or else it will compress your cake and it will get dense. I'm going to leave this on top of a cooling grid to cool to room temperature, about an hour. While our cake is cooling, let's work on our icing. You'll need 1 package of softened cream cheese, and I've melted 4 ounces of white chocolate. Not white chocolate chips, you'll want to use a white chocolate bar, which has a stronger flavor. And I have 1/3 cup of caramel ice cream topping. You can use homemade caramel sauce too, if you'd like. We're going to beat this on medium speed for 5 minutes. And now that it's nice and fluffy, I'm going to use a spatula to gently stir in thawed whipped topping. This is going to add some lightness and extra creaminess to our icing. Now that our cake is cooled, we're ready to fill it with icing. I'm going to unroll my cake. Don't be scared to handle the cake. It's pretty sturdy and set at this point. Use an offset spatula to spread about 1/3 of the icing evenly onto the inner surface. Not too much or it'll be overstuffed and difficult to re-roll. I'm staying about 1/4 to 1/2 inch away from the edges because once I roll it, the icing will squeeze out a little. Then very gently re-roll this cake, starting with the short edge. Re-rolling is easy at this point. Once you get to the end, you may want to take a knife and cut a thin slice off the edges. This gives a crisper look to your spiral. Be sure to wipe your knife with a towel between cuts. Then the cake gets placed on your platter seam side down to prevent it from unrolling. Now take the extra icing and spread it on the surface of the cake. I'm just adding some texture with my spatula. If you're making this in advance, I like covering the cake with icing so it doesn't dry out in the fridge. If you don't like a lot of icing and you're serving immediately, you can also just dust the top with powdered sugar. Here it is, the classic pumpkin roll, a light cake that's rich in flavor, the perfect way to end a heavy meal. Delicious. You can make this ahead of time and it holds up well in the fridge. This is such a great holiday dessert. You might even like this better than pumpkin pie. The techniques that you learned today can be used for other roll cakes like a Swiss roll or an ice cream cake roll. We have many options for you on Wilton.com. The recipes might vary a little, but the core techniques of making a meringue, folding batter, and rolling a cake are the same. If you want to print out this recipe, check out the link in the description box. I want to help you make a great pumpkin roll, so make sure to leave us a comment below if you have any questions. I will do my best to answer. I'd also love to hear from you if you end up making this. If you found this video helpful, please like this video. You can also subscribe to our channel to look for other delicious recipes. Thank you so much for watching. Happy baking!